This is episode 32, and in this episode, we're going to be looking at file handling in Python. So, one of the tasks that you're going to come across for your practical examination is to either read data from a file or write data to a given file. And so, Python allows us to do these actions with some built-in functions, right? But in order for us to actually make use of these built-in functions, we actually have to look at ways in which you can make use of said functions. So for us to get started, I already have this file, text file called demo.txt, and in it I only have 3 sentences or 3 lines, right? I have these sentences going on in the file, and we are going to be using these to demonstrate how you can perform file reading and writing in Python. So to get started, we have to talk about something called access modes in Python, right? So access modes basically, or rather as the name suggests, they are going to give us levels of access whenever we are working with files. So you can actually open a file for reading, you can open a file for writing, and so forth and so on. Actually, there's about 6 different access modes in Python that you can work with. But of course, since we are only interested in reading and writing files, because that's what is defined for the scope of this course, right? We are just interested in reading and writing. Then maybe I'm just also going to have to talk about appending data to a file, because as you see later on in the tutorial, the write access mode actually overrides data. So if you want to add data to an existing file without getting rid of the data that's already there or that already exists, you would have to make use of append. So maybe to get started, let's actually try and read this data that is contained in this text file. So there's actually one of 2 ways you can go about it. So let's look at method 1 of reading a file. So method 1 of read. So this is the widely accepted method of reading contents from a file. So you are making use of the with keyword. So you say with open, use the open function. Then inside of the function, the open function takes 2 parameters. So it takes the name of the file as the first argument, rather, or parameter. Then it also takes the access mode that you intend to use for that particular file. So remember what I told you, that there's a couple of access modes that you can make use of, right? So you see that you all have all of those going on there. But for the purposes of this course, we're only going to be looking at reading and writing, as it were. So we just want to choose R. Then we have to, whenever you use the with open, you have to use the as keyword as well. So you are saying that with the file open as something, right? So you are going to choose a temporary variable name for the file that you've currently opened. So maybe I would just say OP or FP rather, right? FP being the temporary variable name. So what do I want to do with this file? I just want to read. So what I can do is I can print then FP, that is the name of the text input output object, or text input output wrapper. Then there's a couple of methods that are available to us whenever you open files, whenever you create a file handling object. So these are built into Python, so you don't really need to worry about the functionality, but you just need to know which one to use. So in this particular case, we just want to read the contents of the entire file. So that's what we gotta do in this particular example. So let's go ahead and jump down to the console and actually run this script and see what we have going on. So if we run that, we should see that we get the output, rather the contents that are contained inside of this file, right? The output that we get down there in the console. So that's the first method of how you can read data from a file using the with as notation. So let me just clear out the console there. Then we come back to the script and look at the second method. So let's look at method number 2. Method number 2, again, this is another way of reading, right, a file. So what you can do is you can create an object. Maybe let me just call it f. Then f is equal to, then I call the open method because that's what we use to open a file. Then again, as before, we just have to pass the required arguments. So txt. Then we also have to pass the mode. So we just want to open this for read. Then next up, we can simply do print f dot what dot read. So remember, read is a method or a function, so you have to put parentheses after the read word there. Then this is the second method, right? It also works, but the preferred method is typically this one, but of course you can still use this one. It's still fine because at the end of the day, they both get the job done. So if we come back to the console, you should actually see that we get what the output, or rather the contents of the file. So notice that this right here is when we use the first method, and this output right here is when we use the second method, as it were. So that's how you can go about reading contents from a file. Maybe what I can do here is I can just print a blank line, so that's sort of like a line break, as it were, so that next time we run the script, you can see that that separation of the first output and the second output. So that's just about it for reading files, right? All right, maybe in this particular instance, we were reading the entire file in one go. But what if we want to read the contents line by line? How can we go about it? So in order to read contents line by line, let's put a comment and say reading contents line by line. So in order to read contents line by line, we can actually make use of the read line method or a read line function. So we can make use of the same. Should I use the same, or maybe let me just create another one? One thing that I forgot to do in both cases was to close the file, right? So always make it a policy that you close the file. I forgot to close in this case. Whenever you read a file, always make sure that you close it, or whenever you write to a file, make sure you close it. So yeah, I had forgotten that. Otherwise, you are going to get something called resource leakage. So always make it a policy to close your files. All right, so we want to read the contents line by line. So maybe we can have another variable. Maybe let's just call it C, because I don't want my variable names to be too long. C for contents. Then I want to open the file demo.txt. Then I want to open it for reading purposes only. Then what I can do is I can then come down here and use a loop. Before I use a loop, let me actually just demonstrate how you can read a single line. Then I can show you how you can iterate over every other line. So I want to print c dot read line, is it? So that's what I want to do in this particular case. So maybe let me just put another empty print statement here so that we separate the previous output. So coming down back to the console, clear the console. Just wait for it to clear, then we can run the script there. So you see that instead of having the output like in the previous case where we were reading all the contents in one go, right, we just get the first sentence that is inside of the demo.txt file, which is line number 1 there, right? So this is the output that we have there. So this is how you can go about reading a single line at a time, right? And you can actually make use of a loop to iterate every sentence that is contained within the within the file. So to do that, we can modify this part right here, get rid of that. So there's actually several ways we can go about it. You can just say while true, true, then we do that, right? We can read the line. Rather, before instead of doing that, we can check to see if, let's say, if read line, let's say if c dot read line is equal to now I want to check, or maybe what I can do is well, true. Let's see if we say, do we have a now in Python? Now is I'm confusing with Java now. Let me just confirm real quick. Right, so I'm taking a Java approach here to reading files, trying to use a while loop. It turns out you can't use a while loop to read a file in Python. So what you need to do is to use a for loop, right? So you are going to say for line in C. So remember, C is the text.io wrapper object that you've just created on line 18, right? So we are saying that for a line that is inside of what? Of C, right? We are going to need to print that line, right? So this code should work. But now I want you to notice something that's going to happen. Something strange is going to happen when you run the code. So just clear out the console there. Let me expand the terminal so that you can see the output more clearly. So you realize that we are getting the output, right? So this is the previous output from reading all the lines in one go, right? Then this is the output from reading using the read lines, using a loop rather, as it were, right? So we are getting these additional spaces added to our output, of which we do not want that. So the way you can fix this, right, was, remember, you just want to read as it was, right, without these extra lines. So these are actually being added by the for loop, right? So the way we can do it, or the way we can fix this problem, is to use the strip function just after outputting each line, right? So this is essentially going to strip any white space or any new lines that will be added by the for loop. So if we go ahead and rerun this, you see that we get our format in exactly the same way we were getting it before, right? So that's an important thing to note when you are making use of a for loop to read data from a file. Then of course you can also use the with as format of reading data from a file, right? If you want to read line by line, right, you could actually do something like this. You could say what variable can I use this time around? So with demo.txt, right, open it for read, right, as x, we simply want to print x.read line, is it? So x.read line. So we go back to the console, clear it out, and before we run the script. Maybe one more thing before I run the script, let me just add an empty print statement right here so that we have some space in between the output. Then maybe just increase the terminal a little bit, right? Make sure this is right, so that's fine. So coming back to the terminal and running the script, we should get the output from what? From okay, so I'm getting an error as x, right? Supposed to be. And why am I getting that error? X dot with, oh right, I forgot to put open here. I just put parenthesis without that. That's why I got that error there, that trace back. Clear out the console one more time. It's taking too long to clear. So we run that, you should see that we get the output. But then notice how the I keep making these silly mistakes. Forgot to put some parentheses there. Clear the console one more time. Then we get we run the script and we should get our output this time around. I'm confident I haven't made a mistake. So you realize that we are reading a single line at a time, is it? But then again, we are still getting that added new line, empty blank line. So the fix is quite simple, rather, or it is just as before. So you just use dot strip as before. So that's how you can read a single line at a time. So clear the console, then run the file one more time, or run the script one more time, and we should get our output without any extra lines. So that's how you can read lines one by one in Python. So there's several ways you can go about it. You can use a loop, or you can use the with as notation, which is the recommended notation or the recommended way of doing it. But of course, maybe in an exam situation, using a loop would be more efficient, as it were. Then let's move on to looking at writing and appending information to a file. So what we can do is we can actually maybe let's create another file, right? So let's call this one another.txt, right? Then let's say this is some very important information. So this is some very important information. So I want you to see the danger of using write instead of append when you intend to add information to a file. So what I can do is I can just come here, print an extra, use an extra print statement so that we can separate the output later on when we run the code. Then this is writing. To a file. So we can say with then we open the file. So whenever you want to read or write to a file, you're always going to open the file, is it? So we open another.txt, then the mode in which we want to open this file is in write mode, right? So we're going to open it as, maybe let's use the letter D because I haven't used that one as a variable before. Then we simply want to write to that file, is it? So we can say d dot what dot write. Then this, maybe let me actually write, say, overwriting, or rather overwrites existing data, right? Then I'm just going to go ahead and run the script, and of course you should see that we we get our what? We get our output as before, right? This is the output from these statements right here. So now if I come back to the another.txt, you remember that earlier on, let me just Control Z, you see that this is what we had before we ran the script. But now because we ran the script and we had we wanted to write this sentence to another.txt, it means it overwrote the information that was that already existed in the file, is it? So you need to be careful whenever you are using whenever you use W. So how then do you add or append to an existing file? So the way you can do it, the way you can add existing information to a file, you can add new information to a file and preserving the contents that are already in there, is to make use of the append access mode. So with append now, if we go ahead and run this script and we come back to another, you should see that it appended this sentence right there to the end. But now the problem with this is that it's not really, maybe you wanted this to be sentence number 2 or line number 2 in the file. So in order to fix that, you need to write or rather put a new line character to the before you put your data or your sentence, as it were, such that when you run the file just like that, you should get your sentence added to the next line, is it? So you always need to remember to put a /n before the string of data that you want to add to the file, as it were. So yeah, I think we've looked at the various ways in which you can handle files, that is to say, to read, write, and append data to a file in Python. That's just about it for this tutorial. I'll see you in the next one.